Love listening to the Blue Monday podcast? Well, your support is very much appreciated, and for as long as we're producing this podcast, we'll never charge you to listen to us. But if you do want to join others in supporting us financially, you can do just that via the Acast supporters feature. It's up to you how much or how little you want to give, and there is no regular commitment. Just hit the link in the show description. The money you donate may or may not be put towards Joe Fair's football shirt collection. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast, now in our 5th season, talking about the exciting happenings of Ipswich Town football. I laugh every time I do this intro now. I think maybe for next season we need to change things.
I think it's the words exciting happenings.
Yeah, happenings as well. Happenings, no happenings. This is our end of season review, part 3, the good bit where it... Yeah, it's a bit of a roller coaster, the last bit. And joining me to talk it through, Northwest correspondent Seb Brown and naked footy stalwart, the king of the pods, the OG when it comes to Ipswich Town podcasting, Graham Blackburn.
The old git, yeah.
Well, your words, not mine, the OG. Seb, how are you? How's lockdown treating you in Wales? A little bit more severe than down here, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a little bit different up here. We're still about 2 weeks behind England, so no shops opening for us yet. I think it's mid-July they can open, but we're still trying to follow the rules as best we can.
Good for you. We'll try not to get too political in this podcast. I think we need a little bit of space from how crazy the world is. Graham, great to have you back on the Blue Monday pod. You used to be a routine feature for you to do our end of season shows, so this is all familiar for you, but the first time when we've been so crap.
I missed the beginning because I was laughing about something. So, say that again, please.
Well, you're a stalwart of the Blue Monday end of season shows, aren't you? You and Ben, Dave.
When we, But Blue Monday's become big now, isn't it? There's loads of you now, isn't there?
There's too many. Maybe we'll need to do a little bit of a release of the squad at the end of the season, eh? But how's lockdown treating you? The Clippers appear to have arrived from Amazon Prime.
They took ages. This is actually about 3 weeks' growth now.
Okay.
So, would you believe? But I saw Phil Pritchard. I don't know if you know him in town. He's just literally gone through it. So, I think that's the way forward, isn't it?
Lockdown rite of passage. Yeah, exactly right.
Doing it our business, but it's so easy just shave it off.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's a bit safer for the foreseeable as well. We're all having a bit of a drink.
Yeah.
End of season, spirits are in the sky and all that stuff. Because as always, and Ben's quite good to caveat this whenever we do these, we always do the end of season pod, good, bad or indifferent, and this season it's just and it's not terrible or bad, it's just incompetent, but you know, there are peaks and troughs in our little segment in part 3. So the guys will give us their views as and when we go through. We've got some key moments. I'll get your ratings for the players at the end of the season as well. And we'll have a natter, shall we? A bit of a drink, a bit of a natter, and try to make sense of the craziness that unfolded. Let me start by taking you back to where we were. Seb and I had just driven back on the new bit of the A14, having seen Ipswich get torn apart by Lincoln 5-3, if you can recall. That was a bit of a shocker. Town ended 2019 4th, having been top of the league for the majority of September and October. And in Mikey's segment, it has all gone wrong. Rotation galore, international breaks, all sorts of shenanigans, and we're starting to look a little bit hopeless. Lincoln, Tranmere in a minute. Warnock is linked at this point, guys. I don't know if you recall that. Apparently that came up on TalkSport. But 1st of January, New Year delight, Marcus Evans announces just before kick-off to Wickham that Paul Lambert will be given a 4-year contract extension, which extends his contract at the club till the summer of 2025. I can give you some quotes if you'd like. Football management is a precarious business, and I have stated many times the importance of having a long-term vision which is executed by a management team who are confident that they will be given time to continually improve the performance and the quality of the squad. That sounds like management speak, and I know you hate that. Graham, what was your take on this contract extension for Lambert?
To be honest, I think he's right in one way, because it's so easy nowadays. They just sack managers give him a couple of days. He's lost a couple of games and just get rid and then bring a new one in, which strangely enough seems to have worked for that lot up the road, doesn't it? But you go back to the days of obviously Robson, of course, and then he started quite badly with Town, and he was trying to get his own, obviously the kids, he had to depend a lot on the kids, but he was trying to do things his own way, and he couldn't afford to buy players, and the fans were starting to turn. So there is a lot to be said for trying to give a manager time. Having said that, doesn't necessarily apply to Paul Lambert, and especially the modern game is completely different, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say, is it kind of an old philosophy to have this manager in place and give him a stupid amount of time?
I mean, nowadays, they won't even give someone a year, and I think that's ridiculous. You've got to give someone a minimum of like 2 years, I'd have said.
Yeah. Well, Seb, Lambert's contract had 18 months to run when he signed his extension. Were you an advocate for letting the season play out and making decisions like that then? Because this has come up constantly since January the 1st, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the stage he signs the contract, we've not won, I think, for 9-10 games, maybe in all competitions. So I think we were all completely in shock. There's no need to extend it. Wait the 18 months, see how the season goes, because presumably if we fail to go up or if we drop outside the playoffs, Evans is going to be looking to make a change anyway. So it just seemed absolutely bizarre to reward, 10 games of chopping and changing and poor results and losing our gap at the top of the table. If he signs this in start of October, maybe late September, we're top of the league, it would make a lot more sense. You think yourself, he's going to build a pattern of play and we're really going to start to do something here. But to award it on the basis of not winning for 9-10 games, it was absolutely bizarre.
It had been in the works for a while, but I think no one really, I can't remember anyone being a strong advocate or supporter of this decision, and we'll see how this plays out over the next year or so. Crazy times in normal life, but in football, things, as Graham has said, there's always snap decisions, and you kind of think, well, has COVID maybe saved Lambert his job for the foreseeable?
Yeah, but I think what you really need to do is find someone who knows the players and who knows one of the players or one or two of the players as a mate, and find out what the players feel. Because for all we know, they might think he's brilliant. I'm pretty sure they don't, or I'm worried that they don't. But that's how you can judge, isn't it?
Performances,
don't that thing and then played abysmally, even though it was quite an exciting game for the neutral. They played abysmally at Lincoln, didn't they? Just after the announcement, so it obviously didn't bounce into the players that well, did it?
Well, and there's a moderate reaction, isn't there, at Wycombe? A tough fixture, though. Wycombe's form been a little bit patchy. My recollections of Wycombe away, I mean, we need to mention this. I don't think any of us were partakers of this establishment, but a pre-match bar got famous in the press for having pre-match lap dances. I'm assuming, Graham, you didn't partake. I couldn't, even if I wanted to, but I don't. But the traffic in Wycombe was appalling. So this is the first kick-off that I've missed in forever because I couldn't park my car. Wycombe, absolute disgrace. So I won't be going back there in a hurry. But team news, Norris kept his place in the team despite the pretty terrible goal that he conceded against Tyler Walker. It's the first time that we revert back to the three at the back, and this Wilson, Chambers, Wolfenden back three kind of is a starting three for a while. Actually, it brings quite a lot of solidity. Hughes comes in for Dizelle, and guys, it's not a bad performance, but the headline will be the keeper again, Graham. Another interesting.
I'm glad you said that instead of me. Yeah, absolutely, Rich. I thought it was one of our better performances actually away. I think we should have won that game reasonably comfortably. We had most of the possession, couldn't finish again. But as you say, mad rush of blood with Norris, and he rushes out and That was a weird one for me. The thing with Norris, he kept continually playing Norris, even though he kept making mistakes. Now, at first, a lot of us thought, well, maybe there's something in the contract that he's got to play a certain amount of games.
Yeah.
But I can't see that. I don't, and especially when he's got his own keeper, who's actually signed a full-time contract with the town. So, didn't understand that at all. And then eventually he dropped, and then after one game he was back in again, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean,
a strange one though.
Yeah, and Holly's back in for the Exeter game, which we'll touch on very briefly because that's depressing enough. But Seb, what were your general thoughts on? I don't know whether the other guys have dealt with this, but signing 2 first-choice keepers, is that a bit of a luxury in League One?
Yeah, I don't think it was needed. I mean, obviously, I don't know the financial details, but if we were paying or covering Norris's wages of maybe $5-6 a week, that's money that could have been put to much better use elsewhere. We had the Harry Wright. Obviously, I know he picked up an injury. If he hadn't been injured, I'm sure he could have sat on the bench. And the young chap Prisbeck, who saved the penalties in the EFL Trophy at Peterborough. I can't understand why he couldn't sit on the bench and maybe play the odd cup game. Two senior keepers at this level to me seems very strange.
You mentioned the kids in the leasing.com trophy. Let's deal with this game on the 4th of January against Exeter. I mean, this is a strange one, guys, because in the EFL trophy, which we'd not given a crap about, to be honest, and had managed to get our way to the last 16 by playing the kids who'd done well at Peterborough, albeit one on penalties. There's a rotation here where more first-teamers are brought back in. We have a break because Fleetwood, well, we were supposed to be playing Fleetwood that day, but they got into the next round. I think they got into the 3rd round of the Cup, didn't they?
Yeah.
But this rotation again causes us all kinds of confusion. And Graham, it's Lee Martin, the old, the guy who couldn't score for fun, couldn't score for toffee for us, and he's now making a habit of pissing us off playing for Exeter, isn't he? But what was your thought on the leasing.com trophy? This is a chance to go to Wembley, isn't it?
Well, you see, I'm old school, and I remember how it was very apt given the new strip, which we probably talk about in a bit, and the UEFA Cup victory. How disappointed I was that we didn't actually win the league. We should have won the league that year, which would have then gone into the Champions League, or European Cup as it was, and then Villa actually did it and then won it. So just always thought we should have won it. I'm not bitter, but
what's your take on the kit, just quickly?
I like it actually. I'm not the badge thing. I'm not sure. I mean, never did like the badge particularly. Anyway, I know it's got all the symbolism, but I quite like the whole. Yeah, I like the shirt. I do. I don't. I know it's a throwback, but it's good, plain and blue and white all the way through, isn't it? Which is lovely.
So it's a nice, yeah.
And it's actually almost like I can imagine quite a lot of people will buy it because it's almost like a souvenir shirt as well, isn't it? With the victory on there.
I think that's the only reason I'm going to buy it. I'm not fussed. Seb, leasing.com trophy, as I said, was a real good chance to get into Wembley, and through rotation and lapse defensing, it's NCR who makes the mistake to concede the free kick that Martin scores from. Was this an opportunity to give our season a bit of a? I'm trying to think of the analogy. It's like a cherry on top of the steaming turd that was our league campaign.
Yeah, I think so. We've all seen that stat where we're one of, 9, 10, 11 teams that have never appeared at the new Wembley. So I think it was a great chance to progress. The only highlight I seem to remember was I think Bishop made his comeback from injury in that game, and I think he played really well. So I guess from that point, the rotation kind of makes sense. But at this stage, NCR, God love him, he's made a fair few cock-ups during the league games in the run-up to this. We were at Portsmouth where he made a mistake. He makes another one here. Yeah, I can't help but feel we've kind of messed this one up a little bit, and we might look back in a couple of years and think that was a really good chance to get to Wembley, and maybe, I know it's only the EFL trophy, but it's still some form of silverware.
Yeah, and there's a good chance it might not happen next season as well. Let's move on from this one because, another disappointment. But Accrington here, this is a big performance. One of the kind of it's a weird season punctuated by these really big, massive, resounding victories, which is really strange. But it's another team that are down in the bottom half of the table. I think they'd been on a decent run actually, but kind of it felt like a League One team who had the rabbit in the headlights moment, Graham, where they kind of turn up at Portman Road, big stadium, and what have you, and we played the same team as Wickham, and we bossed this game, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
4-1 win.
Yeah, that's where everyone went home thinking, well, we're on a roll now. Now we can kick on and start looking like a decent team again, as we did at the beginning of the season. But never happened, did it?
And all the forward players score goals for Jackson,
Yeah,
Norwood, Judge,
Judge as
Keane.
well. Yeah,
I mean, after a really crap run, as Seb had mentioned, were you thinking, right, let's kick on now? Because I think
exactly.
that's what Lambert was saying, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And
also just to jump in, this was the overlapping centre backs game, wasn't it? Where we saw Chambers and Wolfenden both get assists because they were bombing
underlapping,
down
maybe.
Yeah, I know it's not in the Sheffield United
marauding centre backs.
Yeah, but I think after this we thought, right, maybe now we'll see this more regularly and see a bit of a pattern of play with this. But I don't really remember it ever happening again throughout the remainder of the games.
No, that's a good call, that one. And yeah, I mean the 3-5-2 does feature for quite a lot of these games, but you're right. Chambers, I think I seem to remember Chambers being quite pivotal for one of the goals. I think, doesn't he make a forward run?
He gets an assist. Yeah, I watched them back just before we came on here, and he gets an assist. Nice little flick into the path of Judge, who slots home. And the other one is, I think it's the first goal where Wolfenden comes inside Garbutt, and it's a lovely ball across for I think it's Jackson who gets the goal. So it was definitely a part of the play that day, and I think we all got a bit excited, thinking maybe we'll see this now from now on, because it was a good performance and a bit of a morale boost.
The next game against Oxford's a bit of a weird one, because did you go to this one, Graham?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean the conditions for this were atrocious.
Absolutely.
I drove down from up here in Warwickshire and was seriously contemplating doing a U-turn and driving back up the M40 because I was being blown side by side. The rain stopped and then started just before kickoff, and then we had this whole will it happen? Will it start? Will it? And then we were taken off the pitch twice. I mean, this was a weird night. Have you experienced anything like this ever before?
I think the last time was at the Memorial Ground when we were playing Bristol. Is it Bristol Rovers, isn't it? That was a long while ago when there was sideways hail coming into your face like bullets. I remember that. That was one of the pretty bad ones. But no, and when we were outside as well, didn't have a cover over our heads. But whereas at least in Oxford we did. But it was quite atrocious, wasn't it? I mean, the rain was swirling around. It was coming actually into the stand as well, wasn't it? So
because Oxford's only got 3 stands, which doesn't help.
I know. No, it was. Anyway, my niece managed to pull a guy with a Maserati who drove her home.
I remember you saying that on the Naked Footy show, yeah. I mean,
And
what kind of uncle are you to let her get in a stranger's car, eh?
I did have to vet him. So, just that she was going to miss everything because of this weather. She had to get a bus and then a train or vice versa, and to get to the other side of London. So she was going to fail dismally. So we were trying to plan what to do to stop her getting back at 5 a.m. And then she was standing next to a guy who just said, "Oh well, I live almost just near you," and he happened to have a Maserati as well. So.
Well, at least you got home quickly, eh?
Yeah. So that was the only highlight of that day. Apart from the fact we should have had a penalty at the end, shouldn't we?
Yeah, there's a few iffy decisions there, and I think the referee kind of gives the benefit of the doubt. But the one thing I wanted to kind of mention was 2 things. The first is Tariq Fosu Mensah and Shandon Baptiste are the left-hand side for Oxford, and they were standout players for them. They are sold to Brentford a week later for, I think, pretty close to £1 million, but not much more. And this kind of gives a bit of a wake-up call to League One. You do not get big fees for your good players, and just a bit of a worry maybe, Seb, for what may come with Downs and Wolfenden, probably more likely Downs. The other thing, a bit of rotation on the strikers, which keeps happening. Will Keane came in for Caden Jackson. There's more rotation on the strikers, but yeah, any thoughts on those 2 points, Seb?
With regards to the transfers, I mean, we've said in the past it'd be much better to sell. We're going to lose Downs, we're going to lose Wolfenden, maybe not this summer because of the COVID scenario, but it would be so much better selling them in the Championship from a relative position of strength rather than making the move for, I don't know, 700 grand each, and then next summer or a couple of years down the line, they go for 5 million quid to the Premier League. With regards to the strikers, I'm assuming at this point Norwood was sort of maybe starting to be nursed through games a little bit. I know he's subbed here and there around sort of 60 minutes and stuff in a couple of games. The next game, the Tranmere game, he doesn't start. So I'm assuming maybe that might be a result of his upcoming groin operation. They're trying to nurse him through to avoid the surgery.
Yeah, and this Oxford result, Graham, continues this weird run of not being able to beat teams in the top half of the table. We've gone from Accrington, absolutely thrashing Accrington. What is it about is it a mental thing at this point? Is it a tactical thing? Any observations or thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think it's a mental thing. I doubt they look at the league and think, oh, they're in the top half, we'll probably lose. Oh, they're in the bottom half, we might win. I don't think it works like that. But it is funny that we just couldn't beat anyone in pretty much in the top half or the top 10 or 9. But yeah, I don't know how you put your finger on it. The whole league, the whole season was like that, though, wasn't it? We started off well, then drifted, and then got a bit better, and then went downhill, and just weird.
I think
it does make you wonder. I mean, as I said at the beginning, I don't think we should be thinking of sacking managers every 10 minutes. Having said that, there must be something that the players aren't gelling, and you hit on it earlier, Rich, about the fixture, the England games, and stopping games, and then the permanent rotation of players, and that can't help, can it? It's often, if you've got a run of injuries and you only have one team you can physically play, you often do better than having a whole squad of fit players and chopping and changing. And
and this is what it's going to cost us as well, because we are kind of just at the point where the roller coaster is at the top of the crest of the hill. My analogies are all over the shop, guys. I'm going to blame the beer, but we're at the top of the kind of ramp of the roller coaster, which is about to plummet down from 1st to 10th. And I think there's 2 matches where the first is Tranmere, and then the Lincoln game where we go back to 1st. I think we're 4th at the Oxford game. And it's defeats 3 in a row that are going to cost us. We'll come to these, but this not being able to defeat teams around us, I think, is something that really needs to be looked into. We've kind of mentioned injuries under Mick's era, where a root and branch kind of investigation was needed, but this kind of failure to turn up for these big key games, and these are the ones that get you in the auto spots, let alone the playoffs. So I think that's.
But let's be honest. Sorry to jump in. Let's be honest. This is nothing new. We tend to bottle it in big games, don't we? Let's be honest. I mean, Graham will remember the good times where we did used to turn up, and it was phenomenal. But how many times over the years have we come to a big game where we can either get into the top 2 or get into the top 6 or a playoff game, and we just don't seem to turn up, do we? It's nothing new.
So you're saying Ipswich Town are bottle jobs, Seb? I mean, you're not. You wouldn't be wrong.
I know. Yeah, that is the fact.
The last
I
game
don't know how you fix that, but that is a fact.
The last meaningful game that I think I can recall us winning. So the Newcastle game at the end of the season was a big game that we won. Leeds at the end of last season, we were already down and it didn't matter. When we won a few games under Mick to stay up.
That playoff. Or the
playoff season there were a few.
There were some big games towards the end. Forest a couple of games at the end of the season we had to win to try and get in the playoffs. But even the last day there, we lost on the last day to Blackburn, didn't we? So
that's my overriding thought. But yeah.
Well, even if you take that lot up the road, as they say, even though our record against them is particularly bad at the moment, but we still managed to get up for the game. Everyone's a bit more hyper, aren't they? And so who knows?
We're a weird lot, aren't we?
We're in Division 1, we can walk this, but
yeah, maybe that complacency was there. Yeah, I do think, I don't know whether this is something that Ben mentioned, I think maybe at the start of the season on the pods, that said we maybe thought that because we're the big fish. I think he certainly mentioned this in the first end of season pod, that we were the big fish in a small pond. We could just turn up and roll teams over by force of will. You kind of think that October and November November and December were so bad. Surely we've been shaken up from that complacency, but it doesn't appear to be the case, does it? Do you think that mindset was still there?
Yeah, I mean, you would think that would be the alarm bells. So then come the new year, we'd hit the ground running, but it didn't kick in. I guess there's a part of that. Does Lambert get a bit complacent, maybe with a 5-year deal in his back pocket? The players, if they're chopping and changing every week, maybe they're struggling to raise themselves to the big games. At the start of the season, we were all guilty, like Ben said. We thought, brilliant, we're Ipswich Town, we'll rock up, we won't play well. I mean, look at the Shrewsbury game in August. We didn't play well, we won 3-0. I think that was just becoming the mindset, and as soon as one or two little things start to go wrong, unfortunately, we didn't have the mental fortitude to claw it back.
Let's go to Tranmere, a day at the beach, which is always nice. An absolute joke of a pitch, this. Were you there for this one, Graham? That was
the one I wasn't there for. No, I did see it on television.
Absolute shocking, and And as Seb has mentioned, the kind of James Norwood derby, he's on the bench. Will Keane Caden Jackson comes in, having Keane come in. This rotation of strikers is getting confusing. But this is I guess a good performance in that we come from behind to win. But Tranmere not a good team at that point, in really poor form. We can see from a set piece goal just before, in the first half, I think it's just before half time, a towering header from, is it Monte, I think, or Monte?
Yeah, the man mountain we referred him to on the pod.
And but Luke Garbutt again with the assists for Downs, and a lovely goal from Caden Jackson. Cue pitch invasions and what have you for that one. But a good win, Seb, nevertheless.
I need to stand next to him, bless him, Hayden, who's shall we say he's rather enthusiastic?
He's enthusiastic, yeah.
But,
I'm sure well intended, but maybe not well thought. But a decent game that. Seb, we had a good night out in Liverpool after that, and good pre-match with Mullet, and we met Slower Ball, and all was good with the world.
It was good, yeah. I mean, like you said, the pitch made it a bit of a leveller, but it was a decent performance. Even at half-time, losing 1-0, we weren't overly concerned. We were confident we'd come through in the second half, and we did. And again, that's one of those moments where you're beating a side bottom of the league, and you're really hoping this will now be a catalyst for a bit of a run of form.
And the rotation is gone. You know, we'd moaned about it, and there is a few the striker tweaks aside. These are consistent squad selections that he's making. We go into Lincoln, a nice reunion with Lincoln a month on, and are unchanged. And again, Garbutt assists, Wolfenden, I think it's his first goal for the club. And Graham Rotherham lose to Peterborough, and we are top of the league again. And, sunlit uplands, and, only good things to happen. And what was your sense at 25th of January? Playoffs at least?
Long while back for me now. Well, of course, yeah. I think nearly all the way through until the big collapse at the end, we thought, well, playoffs are minimum, But no, I just don't know what happened, really. I really don't. I think, as I said, you need to find players that will tell you what's going on.
I think around this time, so Emma Hughes is obviously coming back from injury. I mean, he'd been nursed through December and I think a little bit of November. He's now played, I think, 4 games in a row. I think he's played Accrington, Oxford, Tranmere and Lincoln. Rotherham, we'll talk about Rotherham and what that means in a second. But Hughes plays this one again, but picks up an injury. Big player for us, Emma Hughes, isn't he?
I like Hughes, yeah, absolutely.
But these injuries are a bit of a worry, aren't they?
Well, I mean, he's had a really, really serious injury, hasn't he? And then once you've had serious injuries, and then even at our level, at pub level, once you've had a fairly serious injury, then you come back and then you get another injury, then you get what they call compensation injury on the other leg because you put in too much, and that often happens, doesn't it? It doesn't. I don't go along with the fact that these people are injury prone. I know there's a lot. You look at people like Bishop and Will Keane, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but I think once you get a run in the side and you are 100% fit, then you can stay fit for ages. But I like, anyway. Going back to Hughes. Yeah, I think he's a great player, and hopefully, touch wood, he can keep fit for next season because I think he's going to be really important.
And I guess a lot of us were getting a bit worried because of Hughes' injury record that he keeps playing. But are you an advocate for him staying in the first team because that's how you properly build the fitness?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, Robson used to do it again.
Because he didn't have a choice, though. Robson did.
He didn't have a choice, and so he put a kid in, and even if the kid struggled, he put him in again next week, and then after about a month, that turned out to be Kieran Dyer or someone, So, yeah, I like Emmy Hughes. I think he's a great player. He's solid. He gets up and down the pitch. He can score goals, passer of the ball. I'd like to base it, because Scusi's coming to the end of his day. I mean, I know it's not quite his position, but I think building a midfield around, because he's quite an experienced player, isn't he? Whereas we've got these young people coming in like Dobra, and especially, and still got Lancaster and
El Mazzuni
El Mazzuni. There's some classy kids coming through. So I think to have someone like Hughes in the middle there would be good thing. So.
Yeah. No, good call. But this Rotherham game, Seb, is Hughes injuries aside, which doesn't keep him out for too long. I think when he goes down, there's you always have that worry, don't you? That this is
everybody panics and thinks we're not going to see him for the rest of the season. But thankfully, it was nowhere near that. I mean, the Rotherham game, we just didn't turn up, did we? They scored. Was it a set piece? Was it a corner? I think
it was a header. It's a corner. I think it's a corner. It's a Richard Wood head that kind of bounces underneath Norris, kind of thing, doesn't it? And everyone's all over the place.
But they hit the bar a couple of times as well, and we just didn't turn up. And then right at the death, Norwood somehow manages to defy physics and has that chance where it almost goes across the goal line and hits the post and stuff. We could have scraped something, totally undeserved, but we could have scraped something. But we just didn't get going that night.
Yeah, it's Vassal who has that absolute rocket that I think hits the bar from about 30 yards. But Rotherham.
I think they're in their stride at that point, aren't they? I think they had a decent run of form before that, and this is where they really start to make moves. They go on a nice little run just before the season's abandoned. I know they dropped off a little bit at the end, but right now they're in their sort of their rhythm.
I think that was the best performance, the best team we've come up against, or the best game we've come up against, or the hardest game we've come up against, Rotherham away, because we were absolutely battered, weren't we? To be honest.
Yeah. I mean, they doubled us, didn't they? I wasn't when we played Coventry in December. I wasn't too impressed with them, but Rotherham were the one team that I thought had our number. Like tactically, we were totally outdone there. Lambert hadn't got a clue how to respond to that. There's, I'm trying to remember whether it's Nolan who comes on for Hughes, isn't it, when he's injured? But the midfield basically is just totally bypassed, and
we just kept launching it, didn't we, from the back? And the Rotherham centre halves, it was just meat and drink for them. They were just all game heading it clear. It wasn't. We didn't put them under any real pressure, and all we did was launch it.
But another one of these 1-0s. We're not being turned over. He says, knowing what fixtures that we've got to come up.
The next game.
But most cases where we're losing to teams around us, it's a 1-0 defeat, isn't it, guys? Well, what does that tell you? Like we're just not good enough, or teams only need one chance to score against us, and that's enough to win the game?
Worryingly, I think it's the latter. Yeah, I mean, annoyingly, when we concede at this point of the season, if we concede a goal, we're worried about getting back into it in terms of scoring. It doesn't matter when the opposition score; some of our heads drop, and we think to ourselves, we're really going to struggle to get back in this.
And our chances. We mentioned this throughout the season, and I know there are critics of XG. But our XG is pretty poor, as in the quality of the chances that we're creating where you would expect to score. We just don't have those. I think Accrington and Burton are outliers because those are dominant games. But generally in these types of fixture, we just don't present chances to create goals from. Let's just sum up the January transfer window. We're kind of, that game against Rotherham is the 28th of January. The January window slams shut, as the cliche goes, and they're scant business as we probably expected. Josh Earl comes in on loan from Preston, but otherwise it's a load of outgoings as far as I can remember. Barr goes to Millwall permanently, Roberts goes to Gillingham, Enciala to Bolton, Drinnan to Ayr, El Mazzuni to Cambridge, Anthony Giorgio had already gone back to Spurs in December. Seb, for a team that is seeking to get promotion and had gone through a promotion attempting season in 14 and 15 and not strengthened sufficiently, was this a failure from Evans here not to give us more strength and depth or quality in important areas?
Yes and no. I don't think you can really blame Evans for us not being competitive in League One. That said, I would have liked, not a marquee signing, but I'd have liked something different up front. So some sort of target man, a bit of strength who can make the ball stick a little bit. That's what I would have liked. I wasn't asking them to go out and try and sign Ivan Toney, for example, but just something to give the people a bit of a lift. And we look back and we've mentioned it for the last 5 years. In 2015, we're top of the Championship. We don't do any business, and look what happens. This point, after the Lincoln game, we're top of League One and we don't do anything. We knew the squad was too big. We knew people had to go out, but I would have liked a striking addition to come in to help out front a little bit and maybe make the ball stick.
and that's the prescient thought about the striker for what will happen in a few weeks' time.
Yeah.
But Graham, Dave and I have long. I remember Dave saying this at the end of last season, that we probably needed a bit more physicality and a bit more nastiness about us. Would a bit of a lump up front would have been a good addition in January for you, or are you similar to Seb that you don't want to disrupt it too much?
Yeah, I think in this sort of league, I think, well, going back to the Rotherham game, that summed it up because they were a powerful side, weren't they? They're a big physical side. They still play some decent football, but they were in your face all the time, and we didn't have a Murphy, if you want, did we? That you can actually get the ball up to him, he can hold it. I mean, Will Keane is he's a good target man, but he's not an aggressive player that's going to, battle his way through the defence and charge in with his head. In fact, his heading's quite appalling, to be honest, isn't it? But I like Will Keane, but again, it's horses for courses, and as you suggest, Phil, Rich, we probably did need sort of a big Gibbon up front.
We let Roberts go to Gillingham, and I think he had a decent spell there on loan with Steve Evans. I mean, do you feel unlucky that he's had an unlucky spell, Roberts? Because when Lambert first came in, he started in his first game, I think, well, certainly the first home game against Preston, and was quite a handful. We were lacking options clearly at that point. But do you think Roberts has a right to feel a little bit disappointed with how his town career ended up? Could he have contributed something that, differently to the players that we had?
Is that to me? I can't really speak for Roberts because I think I missed the first two games of last season because I was away on holiday, so I never really saw enough of him, I don't think, because he went shortly after that, didn't he? I can't remember.
Well, so he kind of disappears out of the team.
Yeah.
I think, did he ever loan out Seb in the?
He went on loan on the second half of last season. Didn't he go to?
In his first season under Hurst and then Lambert.
Yeah, in the second half of the season, Lambert. In the January window, him and Rowe went somewhere. Was it Lincoln? Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, that was it.
He definitely went out on loan.
But he had this run against Preston and Reading. I seem to recall he was really decent, and he just disappeared out of the team after that. I know.
I guess in the January, we went out and signed Quainer, didn't we? And Will Keane obviously came in for the first time around, so he lost his place there. And then this year, he's the only one who would be a physical option. He took his chance in the EFL Cups pretty well. I know the standard is obviously relatively poor in some of the games, but I would have maybe liked to see a little bit more of him as a bench option, if nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Seb, thoughts on?
Do we know how he did at Gillingham?
He got a couple of goals, didn't he? I think was it 10 games, 2 goals.
Yeah.
Well, actually, he fired them to finish above us.
Hey, there you go.
There we go.
Irony. Thoughts on Il Mazzuni going to Cambridge, Seb? He picks up a serious injury towards the end of his spell, but when he's in the team there, he's appears to be a standout player. Joe's a big fan, although he prefers, I think, Dobra. But your thoughts on that one? Because I was game
happy
time
for him to get some football, to get some proper football. But again, he's one of those like Dobra who you wouldn't mind having, coming off the bench as an option, rather than some of the players that we've had coming off the bench in the last few games. I like the fact he went and played some real football. Obviously, he was unlucky with the injury, and I think he was doing quite well before that, wasn't he? I remember I'm sure he scored like a free kick, and it was all over YouTube for a little while. So I think he'll be a very, very good player, and hopefully he'll be back for whenever the start of the next season may be. But I rate him quite highly.
Just need to play him. There's some interest in our players, Downs and Wolfen, and we've kind of used to January transfer window rumours about those two, but Dobra is the subject of a very strange speculative bid from Brighton, which we turned down on the last day, and thankfully he's now under contract. But as a League One team, do we need to kind of get used to the fact that we mentioned the fees are going to be lower than the Championship, but teams are just going to take a punt on our players who are now on the fringe of the first team, as opposed to the likes of Ben Knight and players like that who've just left, having not even broken through. Is that something we now need to expect, guys? I don't know if anyone's got any particularly strong feelings about that. But...
Yeah, the Ben Knight thing was a shame, really, wasn't it? I think it was Ian Milne, used to say there's not a lot. If they come in with a paltry fee, I know we were a division above then, but if a team comes, it was Man City comes in with a paltry fee, and then the mother will just say no, and then they just double it. So a paltry 1 million will offer you 2 million. Then all right, then that's someone's livelihood. Guess 2 million grand. Oh yeah, go on then. It's hard when they're that age to, I think at any club, if they offer parents, because they go through the parents a lot, don't they? Tempt you. So it's life changing. So,
and I guess at that that level, it's nothing, isn't it? Sorry.
Yeah, what you were saying, Rich, is that he's gone, but we've not seen him since, have we? Apparently, he's performed well in these friendlies, pre-match friendlies away in Europe and Asia or something. But yeah, we've not heard from him since, and now he could have been. He could have been worth a hell of a lot of money to Ipswich at that point, couldn't he, if he'd stayed? But yeah.
Sorry, Seb, did you want to add anything on that?
Sorry, yeah, just a quick point. I mean, for the likes of Brighton, offering, was it 350 grand? Yeah, it's nothing, is it? They can take a punt, and if it doesn't work out, it's no big deal. We've just seen today Luke Garbutt being released by Everton, and Ancelotti. You don't know if it's real or not, but he just went, who was that person? These Premier League sides can stack their squads out. If it doesn't work for them, it's relatively little loss. So I think we need to get used to that a little bit.
Yeah. I saw Luke Garbutt posted a little cameo of himself to Ancelotti, didn't he? You've seen it on Twitter.
This is who I am.
Like a highlights reel, was it?
This is who I am, boss.
Never mind. Let's deal with Peterborough, shall we? This was an absolute shocker. This is a schooling here. I'm gonna cite mitigating circumstances because Garbutt goes off injured on 25 minutes, and I think there is a spell of where we are just crap without Garbutt in the team. I think that's a fact here, but Norris, who's kept his place in the team, has not really done too much wrong. And there were questions about Rotherham, Wickham we've talked about, but he's kind of played himself a little bit into form. But this second goal for Smodic is an absolute howler, isn't it, guys? Do you remember this one? Yes. When Norris goes for a walk? Dembele was the pick of the players for me. Smodic gets a fourth. Noor comes off the bench and is busy and gets a goal from a penalty. But this is a humbling, isn't it, Graham? I mean, this is the worst performance of the season by a long way.
I'll after Rotherham, I think. Rotherham away, but the worst home performance, yeah, definitely. And as for Norris, I don't know why he was still in the side. I know you say he'd played his way back, but
to an extent, as in he's a 6 or a 7 out of 10 each week, rather than a 4 or.
I think even if you go back, you went to Portsmouth, didn't you? Even if you go back that far, I mean, it was a fairly even game. I thought we played reasonably well. And that was a weak hand that Norris got to that shot. Most keepers would have managed to push that away somewhere, and he just hit his hand and went in again. And you've got to feel sorry for Holy, haven't you? I mean, he's done nothing wrong really. He's even saved a penalty at one point. So, and as I said at the beginning of this thing, he's our number one keeper. Why aren't you playing him? It's just crazy. Sorry, I've gone off on a tangent.
No, that's fine. I didn't want to dwell too much on this game, but it is. I mean, this is a standout moment where, there's the atmosphere changes a little bit at Portman Road. Yeah. We've now dropped down to 9th. So this feels like a kind of pinpoint moment of the season when things just spiraled a little bit. There's a mini revival against Burton in a few weeks' time, but this was a real kick in against a team that you want to beat to send a message, don't you?
Yeah, we just got schooled, like you said. You described it perfectly. After losing to Rotherham, we had these 3 games in a row, didn't we? Rotherham, Peterborough, and then next up is Sunderland. And we were all thinking to ourselves, we need to be taking maybe 4 points from these 3 games to really establish our credentials amongst the top 6. But to lose them all and the manner in which we lost them was alarm bell should have been ringing. We were just schooled that day. Couldn't deal with Tony, couldn't deal with Smodic. The keeper makes an awful howler, and it was a really, really bad day at the office.
Sunderland game, this was an interesting day. Storm Kira was about to hit. Very windy day. We went looking for a fan zone at Sunderland, Graham, that didn't exist. It was kind of made up fan zone at Sunderland, and then I'm going to a pub with a strange name with mullet. That was an interesting day. But this was like a carbon copy of the game at Portman Road against Sunderland. We absolutely battered them for the first 45 minutes. Couldn't get the breakthrough, as per usual. Holly is back in goal, so the patience has run out on Norris. Holly is back in. But there's a bit of a weird rejig. We've got Danassian in for Gwion Edwards. Gwion Edwards had been in this right-sided wing-back situation and had got better and better, but Peterborough really exposed him, didn't it? you can sometimes against the better teams figure out the players who are out of position. Garbutt's injured, so Kenlock comes in for him, and Alan Judge kind of went missing again in a big game, and Nolan replaces him. But guys, a game of two halves, literally. Well, it is literally because it is always a game of two halves, but metaphorically, the sucker punch from Maguire. Town just ran out of ideas, didn't they, Seb, in this one?
Yeah, we played quite well first half. I mean, I think all three of us were there. We played okay first half, didn't take the chances. Norwood has a one-on-one, and I think at half-time, I think you and me both said to each other, we might regret not taking one of these chances. But second half, we just didn't come out the dressing room, did we? They hit the woodwork, I think, once, maybe twice, I can't remember. And they scored relatively late on, but
yeah, 81 minutes.
As soon as that goal goes in, even though there's 10 minutes left to go in a bit of injury time, you think to yourself, that's us done today, unfortunately. And again, it's this weird thing of not playing well for the entire game. You know, we played well for 45 minutes and then just don't turn up for the second half. And we did it on countless times throughout the course of the season. It was really weird.
Graham, did the Sunderland goal just feel inevitable, as Seb said?
Yeah.
After the first half, where we didn't score.
Yeah, you summed it up really, both of you actually. Yeah, I mean that was it. Once first half, we were so much on top, and you think, you know what's going to happen. It's Ipswich Town, isn't it? So
yes,
it's just going to happen, and it did.
And we're now kind of at a bit of a run of it's no win. Well, we Wimbledon next, so you've just lost to three in a row to teams around you, and are tumbling down the table. What you want is a nice morale boosting game, Graham, against the team that we can beat in a. Tell us about your view for this game. The stadium at Wimbledon, is it?
It was a 9-9 draw, was it? I don't know. I couldn't see anything.
I couldn't tell you.
I'm nearly 6 foot tall, and I could hardly see a thing. And I was watching most of the game side on as well. It's just awful, wasn't it?
A bit of a cramp. Just
better.
Yeah, well, I didn't go to that one. It sounded like just a little bit of a logistical nightmare there. Is it Plough Lane? What is it Kings Meadow? I forget what.
It's Kings Meadow, isn't it? Yeah.
But it sounds like a ground that shouldn't even be in the professional leagues.
No, I actually walked past it on my way into Kingston, isn't it, next door, and I thought, like, surely this isn't it. You know, it looked like a little pub back, one of those gardens you have behind a pub with a couple of sheds. But no, it was atrocious. And the stewards, bless them, they weren't horrible, but I think they hadn't prepared themselves for such a gathering, especially for a night game, and they didn't know what to do with everyone. You know, people were sort of standing in the disabled enclosure and all this, and they were having to be shoved out. And they said, well, where are we going to go? And there literally was nowhere for them to go other than stand there. And it was shocking. The performance wasn't brilliant, but it wasn't our worst. We could have probably nicked it. We probably the slightly the better side. But
yeah, there's a chance for Keane, isn't there, I think, in the second half. But I think the thing I wanted to mention, so we're still with this 3-5-2. Earl comes in for Kenlock. Hughes is back in from injury. But there's this midfield three of Scouse, Hughes and Downs. And you just kind of, I remember our chat on the pod was, you know, do we need to be more attacking in this game?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. They're all very skillful players. I mean, even Scusi, I know Scusi's getting on, but they're not. Maybe Hughes is an exception. They're not people that are going to burst forward and go
break
flying
or
anything like that, are they? None of them are. So
yeah. This. I'm trying to see whether this midfield configuration happens again. I don't think it does. But alarm bell said when you saw that lineup, was it?
Yeah, a little bit. You wanted some creativity in the middle, so be that a Dezelle from deeper, you know, sort of pulling the strings, or a Bishop to make the runs and break the lines. When you see those three players lined up, you think of yourself, there's a lot of hustle and bustle. They'll read the game very well, but where is the creativity and where is the runs in behind the strikers to give a bit of support to the front men?
And Wimbledon's approach to this game should not have been a surprise, should it? You know, we knew exactly what we were going to get after the game of Portman Road. What is, you know, is this a game for going long? Is this a game for having the big lump up front?
Well, that's where you want it. Yeah, make the ball stick up front, and then get your runners in midfield and in the wings in behind him to create chances. You know, we didn't do that. I think was this the game when Norwood hit the bar from a corner? I think it was, wasn't it? So, like Graham said, we could have nicked it, but it wasn't our worst performance, but it wasn't the morale boosting win that we all thought we'd get after the previous three games against sides in the top six.
No, and well, Go on, Graham.
I was just going to say, I think, because didn't he play Will Keane up front pretty much on his own? And then that's the thing. As I said, I do like Will Keane, and he can hold the ball and he can, lay it off and all this. He's not a Murphy. But if you are going to play him up front, you need someone behind him, or someone like a Dazelle or a Dobra, or someone that will feed off him. But there is no one, and he sort of holds the ball up and then waits. And like you say, that there's quite a static midfield three he had that day. So
I'm just trying to figure out whether Judge was in that team or not as well, because that's the kind of role that you would expect Alan Judge to be playing. But
I don't remember him being in it.
No, I'm just checking it now, just quickly.
I think it was the game where he brought Sears on at left wing back, wasn't it? Or something. There was something weird.
Possibly. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I'm sure Sears comes on and we think, brilliant, Keane will get some support up front, but I'm sure he goes like to left wing back or something.
Yeah, so
something very strange.
Sears comes on for Josh Earl. Yeah. Dynastian's in there.
See, that's quite a negative side, isn't it, for a team when you're playing someone like Wimbledon?
So Keane comes on actually.
No, does he?
It's Norwood and Jackson up front, but I don't think it was the two up front. I might be wrong on that one, but it didn't feel like it anyway. But there was certainly a huge gaping chasm between the strikers and the midfield, and that was a real issue in the relegation season last year, wasn't it? But yeah, just a lack of guile or a lack of in your face getting stuck in. So no wins in 4, and then we turn it around to Burton. I've written demolition here, but this is another one similar to Accrington, Graham, where just
there's one of them you think, oh, here we go, we're off. We've got to win some.
Another false start, but another one where Burton took the lead in this one. Murphy, absolute acres for 1-0. He's just got the whole of the left-hand side of the pitch and cuts in. But a decent rally, decent performance here. Judge and Jackson get a couple of goals each. Well taken goals here as well. A nice assist for Judge and a Jackson diving header. One of the goals that I particularly remember in this one. But I guess at this point, where you no wins in 4, and then you beat Burton, that's great. But you now got Oxford coming up. That's the game.
Was this where he came out and said about the Hunters? Was it around this time when we were dropped outside the playoffs, hadn't we? So Lambert came out and said, "Let's see how they all deal with being hunted, and now it's good to be the Hunters or something." But I know we won this game pretty comfortably, but it wasn't really a sign of what was to come, was it? It was yet again battering a smaller team, which we should do, rather than the next few games we're just not going to turn up again.
But as I mentioned a few minutes ago about Garbett returns for this game, and Earl is pushed to centre back. How much of our good performances were thanks to Garbett being in the team, Graham? Was he our player of the season? I know Downs probably would have won it if we'd done it, but Garbett felt like the player that made us tick in an attacking sense, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if we could keep hold of him, or rather get him back, but I can't see it because there's got to be clubs that are higher than us that are going to want him. But yeah, I thought he was a great player. Player of the season, maybe, I don't know. He certainly wasn't the worst. He was one of the best, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he'd fancy a level above the League One as well, wouldn't he? But yeah, I think there's something to be said for Garbett being in the team when we were at our best, I think.
Yeah, it's one for the stat man, isn't it? How many points did we get with Garbett?
Yeah, win percentage with Garbett in the team.
Yeah.
Well,
he just has that bit of quality, doesn't he? From a set piece, or he's got that bit of vision, to pick out even just a long ball forward. They're not just punts forward; it's a controlled pass forward. He's got that bit of Premier League sort of quality. You can tell he's been training amongst better players, and like I'd love to keep him as well, but I think we know he'll probably end up he'll go somewhere like Derby next year, won't he, or something in the Championship, I would think. Yeah, so somewhere like that. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Somebody sort of making a push for the playoffs next year. I could see them fitting in there quite nicely.
Preston. There you go. There's my prediction. Up back in the north, winners. So we've, as Graham said, we've kind of got a nice morale boosting 4-1 victory. But 21st of February, so just a few days after that Burton win, Norwood, it's announced that Norwood has to have surgery on what is the word? I want to say abductor muscle. I think that's
it's an abductor, isn't it?
Is that a medical term? It sounds like someone who works on a bus. And there's a dad joke there. That's
children.
Goodness me. Wow.
Wow.
How many beers you want, Graham? No, don't answer that. But out for 2 months. I mean, as the season panned out, it didn't really matter. But your thoughts on Norwood and whether your suspicion, Seb, was when he wasn't in the team in January, we were resting him because of injury rather than form.
Yeah. When was his first stop? Was it October time or something? Was it October, November? He had the first stop, and he was out for maybe a month. Maybe we rushed him back. I don't know. But he was definitely being nursed through. I think in the final third of the year, he would be subbed on the hour mark, or he wouldn't start the game. He'd come on for the last half hour. So I think they had one eye on trying to nurse him through, and then do the surgery in the summer. A fully fit James Norwood probably scores more than 11 goals. That said, he was our joint top scorer with Jackson. And I think he had by far and away the most shots of any of our players. So I'd like to see what he can do next year when he's fully fit and he's got a decent pre-season under his belt. And don't forget, it was his first time at this level, wasn't it? For any, I think he played a couple of games maybe in the past at this level, but it's his first season. So I'd like to see him with a fully fit, firing Norwood. I think will get us. I think he's good for sort of 15 goals a season or so.
Let's So we've Burton 4-1. Norwood out injured, and now we're going to have 4 defeats on the bounce. And the Oxford defeat compounds the misery about Norwood's injury because Caden Jackson gets sent off for violent conduct in injury time in this one. But this is where I think the atmosphere properly starts to turn. You've kind of 1 week you've shown that you can beat anyone in the league comprehensively. The week after you become toothless. You're done by a sucker punch goal. Lambert is booed. Chancellor don't know what you're doing. I wasn't at this one. Graham, were you at this one? Was this a bit of a watershed moment in respect of the supporters' views of Lambert?
Well, it was sad because I'm an Oxford fan who lives only a few hundred yards from me was giving me so much stick after the game. It's horrible. So yeah, no, it was a sucker punch. I mean, we weren't that bad, I didn't think, but we weren't that good either. And as you say, we should be beating teams like that. I know Oxford were on a bit of a roll at the time, which started when we played them away, I think. But yeah, and I don't know. Yeah, it was just disappointing, wasn't it? I think, as you say, everyone was starting to. Heads were dropping, and people were thinking, "Oh God, how much longer is this going to go on for?" Fortunately, the virus stopped it for us.
But another 1-0 defeat to a top team. Another game, Seb, where there's just no attacking options. And now we went to Blackpool. Did you do Blackpool as well, Graham?
No, but because I was abroad, I managed to get it on iFollow, so I did watch the game.
So we can talk all about this one. It's a weird game, this one. Talking about sucker punches.
That's the big one, wasn't it? Especially as Sears had gone up one end.
Yeah.
And literally within a few seconds, it was in the back of our net.
Tell us about Blackpool, Seb. This is the holiday destination of the Northwest, isn't it?
It's where we all go. Yeah, we're all counting days till it opens up again, and we can all get in our cars and head up to the big one at the Pleasure Beach. It was a weird day, wasn't it? He changed the formation. He went 4-3-3, and Bishop was wide, wasn't he? Bishop played
Bishop
like a
and Sears,
right,
either side. Yeah,
and
it
was a bit. Yeah, it was a bit weird. Keane was the focal point. Keane did well for the equaliser, if I remember rightly. He sort of waited for the defender to commit and chip the ball into Sears, and that chance at the end where you're thinking, here we go, brilliant, 3 points before a little bit of a rally before the end of the season. And then I remember the goalkeeper catching it. I remember you turning to me and going, here we go, we'll concede now. And then 15 seconds later, it's 2 bits of awful defending and the ball's in the back of our net. And at that point, you just know, just end the season, please. We must have been about 10th by then, 11th by then. I know everyone's saying we could still do it, but at that point, we all surely knew that we were destined for another year in League One.
We turn up, Graham, and it's the start of Storm Jorge.
Oh yeah, do you remember?
And
God.
Super windy, but it's blue skies, sunny blue skies, and we walk out of the ground, and it's still windy, but now dark grey skies and rain sweeping in. It was very kind of symbolic of our mood.
Metaphor, wasn't it, for the town season? Yeah.
But, I mean, another thing kind of to mention in this game, aside from Sears' first goal since Villa away in January 2019. Liam Feeney is who gets the assist for the 93rd minute goal. Hughes and Downs have their kind of stupid brain fart moment that leads to the first goal for Dewsbury Hall. Neither of them decide to clear it. But I guess one positive was an appearance by Tyree Simpson, who came on for the second half, Seb, and looked like the kind of physical forward presence that we'd been saying before that we were missing.
Yeah, and Dobra as well, I think, came on and looked really, really lively when he got involved in the game. Simpson, I think, was it Joe said he's an ex-rugby player? So you could tell that, from his physique, he was a big guy and he was putting himself about a little bit, and he certainly looked very promising, as did Dobra when he came off the bench.
Let's just finish this. Let's just get this finished, guys.
Let's just end it.
It's 2-1-0 defeats at home to finish the season. One to Fleetwood, and Anti-Evans and Anti-Lambert chance are starting to kick up here. Brett McGavin's given a first league start. It's a bit of a... Were you at this one, Graham? Did you feel a bit... the Fleetwood game where McGavin is thrust into the centre of midfield against Fleetwood.
No.
But that was a bit of it, and he was hauled off at half time. We still got the one up front, so Judge is kind of in behind Keane, but again, just toothless from town, and it's bloody Ched Evans, who out sprints Chambers, if that's such a thing, and it's a low finish that Holy really should do better with. He doesn't really get. He's a big guy. It goes in off his foot,
doesn't it? I think if I'm rightly, it hits his foot, doesn't it? And goes in the net. So
he gets a boot to it, but. And Joey
at this stage, we've got nothing on the bench, have we? I mean, Keane's up front, and there's no real options on the bench to look to change things around, which again goes back to the earlier point about the January transfer window being wasted.
Yep. Booze after that one, and Joey Barton's nice and smug, as you'd expect to be. Joey Barton, Graham, do you remember the away game when Joey Barton questioned our mental fortitude when we started doing the kind of waving arms at the end of matches? And I think he didn't appreciate us doing that away at Fleetwood, but said we're not that good a team, and we need to achieve something before we start doing things like that. Did Joey Barton have our number?
It looks like it. But if I can go back to my pet gripe, as soon as Seb just said, Holy made not really a mistake, was it? But it was a bit of a poor effort to stop the goal, and then he was immediately dropped again, wasn't he? So there seemed to be one rule for one goalkeeper and one for the other. So Norris can make 4 or 5 mistakes and stay in, and then get dropped, and Holy makes just the one.
And as we said,
that was one of my gripes from the season.
I'm just checking the Coventry lineup. Yeah, I hadn't clocked that Norris comes back in for this one. So
I think he does.
There you go. He does. He absolutely does. And this is it. And this is the kind of when the kind of the COVID stuff starts to kick off properly. I remember Seb and I went to Sunderland away. You did the Sunderland away, didn't you, as well, Graham? And that weekend, the news story broke about people being quarantined in Newcastle who had been on that ferry, and you kind of joke about it a little bit and go, "Oh, blimey, keep an eye out for quarantine and vans and stuff like that." I think we saw some weird.
We saw a disease van or something, didn't we? Yeah, remember it?
Out in Newcastle the night before.
Yeah.
But this is where it's getting a bit real. It's another defeat, 1-0 to a team in the top 6. Garbutt again goes off injured, and I think that has an impact. But a goal from Matt Godden just, I think, after Garbutt goes off. But it's the elbows celebration. There were kind of no handshakes and all that kind of stuff. We had possession, but no real clear-cut chances. I think this is a 4-3-3 with Bishop, Sears and Judge. But this is... Coventry weren't great, were they, guys? I don't remember being too impressed, but I guess they didn't need to be particularly good to beat us, did they? And that's the story, I think, of the games against the better teams. And
when you look at the players we had, and he alluded to it earlier, he brought Dobra on very occasionally, but he came on, he made his debut up at Accrington, didn't he? He was sent straight off after about 10 minutes. But I thought we played a blinder in the 10 minutes he was there. He really shook the game up. We ended up losing that game, but when it came on, I thought, oh, here we go. And then he was never seen again for ages. Give the guy a go. It's what we were crying out for, someone like that, wasn't it? That could run at people.
Yeah, well, somebody does get a chance here who had a very strange campaign. Andre Dizelle starts this one in the central midfield. I mean, this is a false start of a season for him as well, Seb. He never really plays in 24, and this game he just appears to be lost, really. I think he might have a loose pass that leads to the build up to the goal, maybe, I think.
It was weird, wasn't it? He would just get dropped in. He'd be out the side, not even on the bench for 4 or 5 games, and then suddenly he'd be starting in central midfield alongside Downs. So, unfortunately for him, the season was a bit of a write-off. He never really got going. I don't really remember him standing out in any games. I guess you wanted to play that sort of deep lying playmaker kind of role with the defence splitting passes for the strikers or the inside forwards, but he never really got going. Be that he's got to recover from his injury, he had a really bad injury. Is it the contract situation weighing on his mind? He never got going, and I'm not so sure he'll do much next season either.
Don't know. I think we saw flashes of it because I kept an eye on him in a couple of games, especially watched him, and some of the things he would do. He would look one way and put a striker through just with one touch, and then, as you say, he would probably become just disappear from the rest of the game. But he does have that thing in him. But like you say, he wasn't given enough games to. You just don't get going, do you? If you're going to be dropped again and then brought back 2 weeks later. And I think Gisele's a super player. I really do. But whether we'll see much of him again, who knows?
Yeah. That's the end of the season, guys. I'll get your thoughts on individual players. We'll kind of do a bit of a player ratings thing. But that is good enough for 52 points and 10th position as at the point when the season effectively goes into lockdown just before Bristol Rovers. Games against Portsmouth, the Bristol Rovers away game I mentioned, Southend at home, Bolton at home, Shrewsbury away, Rochdale. These are winnable games, but did we pin too much hope on getting the points necessary to get in the playoffs in these matches and kind of took our eye off the ball maybe in February when the damage was done? Would you? I guess my short question, Seb, is would we have got back in the playoffs with those fixtures?
No, we'd have finished higher than 11th. We'd have beaten the likes of Bolton, Southend, Shrewsbury and MK Dons. But I think we were kidding ourselves if we thought we'd get 6th.
MK were on form though, weren't they? Oh, they weren't. No. But yeah.
I don't think any of us can really sit here and say, "Oh, we were robbed," blah blah. The season should have gone on. We were. I think after those 3 games, Rotherham, Peterborough, and Sunderland, I think we all knew what was likely to happen.
Graham, you agree?
Yeah, no, I can only agree with Seb. I mean, I couldn't see us getting out of that. I don't think we'd have. No, we wouldn't have made the playoffs. I don't think. I mean, who knows? Teams do go on a run, don't they? They win about 8 games out of 9, but I couldn't see it.
That wasn't us, was it? Too spiky was our form. And after the season is decided on points per game, we are actually dropped down to 11th.
Outwitted by Steve Evans
and Jordan Roberts, and our lowest league position in 67 years, or what have you.
But even I wasn't there for that.
But strange times and all that kind of stuff. So we'll have to see what transpires next. Your thoughts, just very briefly. Wycombe, Oxford, Portsmouth, and Fleetwood make up the playoffs. Coventry, Rotherham get promoted. Your thoughts on who will go through on the playoffs?
I'd like it to be Portsmouth, thinking about next year in terms of a threat, but the playoffs are a lottery. I think Wycombe are very lucky to be in there, given how it all worked out with the points per game thing. But my back would be Portsmouth.
Graham?
I mean, to be honest, we outplayed Wycombe in both the home and away games, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we had a shocking refereeing decision in the first game, and then Norris again in the second game. I think Portsmouth probably deserve it as well. And although they will be strong next season, so that's another reason to get rid of them. But yeah, I think maybe Portsmouth deserve it.
Slow burn of a season as well. They were really close. Jacket was close to getting sacked, if I recall. And then
Also, back to what you were talking about at the beginning of the thing about do you want to get involved in cup matches and go to Wembley? Well, that cost them last season. They did get to Wembley, but then that messed their season, their league form up, and they didn't go up where they looked as though they would, certs to go up. So, working.
Well, Peterborough and Sunderland are the teams that miss out, and obviously through the points per game or the voting by League One teams, clearly we're very unhappy with that situation. There'll be tricky opponents next season as well. But and just to finish off, Tranmere, who had won 3 games on the bounce before the season was called to a halt, have lost out on points per game and joined Southend and Bolton in the relegation places. It's Northampton won the playoff game. We're recording this on Tuesday the 30th. So Northampton, Seb and I have ticked that one off. Have you been to Sixfields, Graham?
Been to the old one? No, I've not been to Sixfields. No.
It's a weird one. It's like I think that they had a owner who took over who claimed to have loads of money and started redeveloping the ground, and then turned out that he didn't have that money, and so it's kind of like MK Dons Stadium was, where you had kind of an empty tier. There's this kind of big shell of a grandstand that would look quite impressive if it was filled in, but it isn't. The other teams coming up: Swindon, Crewe, and Plymouth as well. So 4 teams up, 3 teams down. I'm trying to do the maths there.
It's to balance out for Bury not being in the
Bury,
league.
of course. Yeah, that makes sense. So Swindon, Crewe, Plymouth. I haven't done Swindon. Done Crewe. Oh, we're going to Plymouth?
I've done all
to.
yeah.
Oh, it's a long old way, isn't it?
We've got to do it at some point.
It's a weekend away, isn't it, really? Especially for you guys, you live even further away, don't you?
That is true. Well, I'm flying it from Manchester or something.
Yeah, you could, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Can I let's thank you guys for your insights and your views on that. Ultimately a season of disappointment, and big serious questions needing to be asked. We've talked a lot about Lambert. We talked a bit about Evans. Let's just finish with the players, if we may. I just want to get your ratings out of 10 for the kind of key starters through the season, and get a sense of whether we've got a squad that is in general 5s and 6s or maybe 7s, and the odd player 8s, which suggest that the quality of the squad is just not there, or whether tactically they've been let down and actually we've got 7s and 8s and 9s, and we've just not used them properly. So let's start with the keepers. Holy and Norris. Seb, what's your scores for them?
Holy, I don't really think. Do you just want simple answers, or do you want a bit of?
If you want to give me a bit of insight, that's fine. We haven't probably got time.
I'd say Holy 6, solid first season. Norris 4.
Graham?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Holy wasn't absolutely brilliant at all, but I think he was the better keeper of the two.
He got an assist or 2, didn't he, as well, Holy?
He's got a mighty kick on him. That's one thing.
I feel sorry for Norris, but then it's possibly because I met him and know that he's a nice bloke.
I know.
I just feel sorry for him. But yeah, he did. He's these high-profile errors really, really held him back, didn't they? Donatian, weird season for Donatian. Moments where he was in the team and he was out. Graham, do you want to give Donatian a score, or not enough of a sample?
Maybe a 5. But I think, again, going back to what you've both said, no one gets a regular run in the side, or hardly anyone does. And even Donatian, I know he's probably not up to it, but you don't really know. If you give him 10 games, who knows? He might settle in and play really well, but none of them were given that long, or very few.
Would you say the same for Kenlock as well, Seb? Would you score Donatian and Kenlock similarly?
Yeah, I'd say 5. He started the season as part of that back 4, which went on that run of not conceding a goal when Garbutt was ahead of him at left midfield. But then, like Graham just said, he didn't get a run in the side, did he? And drifted away. Made the occasional EFL Cup game and came in when Garbutt was injured here and there. But I'd say a 5 for Kenlock.
Is Wilson going to do any better than a 6 for you guys? Solid, but
yeah, I thought he was solid. He was unspectacular. He could always find row F if he wanted to, and rarely made mistakes. It's a good, solid play. I'd give him a 6 at least. Yeah. I thought he was.
I'd say 6. Yeah.
What about Chambers? Chambers always splits opinions, doesn't he, guys?
That's it.
What are you going to give him, Seb? I'm going to come to you.
I'd say for Chambers, I would say a 6. Sunderland aside, I can't remember any direct mistakes that led to goals. I'm not counting the Wickham one because that was an awful call by the referee. So I would say a 6 for Chambers.
Are you going to go with a 6 as well, Graham, or are you going to do something contentious?
It's following Seb, but yeah, I agree. And he is a motivator at the end of the day. I know he gets a lot of flack, but one could argue that he's not motivating enough after you see the results. But who knows whether that's coming from the manager or not. So
I'm going to try and do my best to not lead the witnesses here, but I'm going to do a bit of clustering because otherwise we'll be here all night. I just wanted to put Garbutt and Vincent Young together to see whether you'd score them similarly, because there was a spell where they were the left and right hand side, weren't they? And to me, they were 2 good additions to the squad and contributed in a big way. But would you discount Vincent Young because of the big injury?
I'd give him if he. Sorry, Seb. If he was a regular, I'd give him a 9. I thought he was outstanding. I mean, he only had one dodgy game, and that was when he was injured, or you could clearly see he was injured, and then he went off to have his operation. But yeah, no, it's a fantastic signing.
Seb,
I think.
Similar, I'd say an 8. I thought he played really well. I mean, the home game against Tranmere, he was marauding up that right flank, and it's a glimpse of what could have been. You know, if he stays fit all season, it's a great outlet for our attacking options. So good bit of business, and I'd give him an 8.
And Garbutt as well?
For me, I'd give him a 7. Brilliant for the free kicks and the assists. I just thought every now and again he would get caught out when he was left back. I prefer him as a left wing back or a left midfielder to an out-and-out left back. But I'd absolutely love to keep him here. But...
Luke Wolfenden, Graham, his first full season, solid season?
Yeah, absolutely. Another 8, I think. Good,
8.
solid.
Yep.
For his first season, it's pretty outstanding, wasn't he? I thought.
The midfield is where. Let me start with Flynn Downs.
I assume we're both probably going to say 8 or 9. I thought he was he'd be the player of the year if we had the awards. There were some games where he was just looking to make the difference, and the bustle in midfield and breaking from deep and leading by example. And he is far too good for League One.
Yeah, agree with that, Graham.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm gonna list you the midfield, and if you want to give anyone, well, it just feels like a lot of meh in midfield. So Gwion Edwards, quite a spiky season, obviously pushed out wide to wing back, which possibly didn't suit him. Scouse, Nolan, Bishop, Rowe, Judge, Dazelle, and then we've got Hughes coming in partway through, Dobra, Ilmazuni. Is there anyone there that you want to pick out and make a case for anything above or below a 6?
I'd say below. No, I wouldn't give Nolan a 6. I was really disappointed with Nolan. I thought he was going to be a big player for this year based on his Shrewsbury season where he got, I don't know what it was, 10, 12 goals from midfield. So I was really disappointed with him, annoyingly. So I'd probably give him a 5. And Scouse, I'd give a 6 to be fair. Danny Rowe, I'd probably give a 6 to as well.
Danny Rowe, Graham, started off the season really well, didn't he, when we were playing the 4-4-2? But just disappears, doesn't he?
He did, but he's more an out-and-out winger, and if a winger's not on form, then you've pretty much lost it, innit? Yeah, I think Bishop's showed flashes.
He did.
You know what he can do when he's 100% fit. I think Dazelle showed even less, but flashes of what they can do. I think looking forward to next season, if you think of the side, the midfield we've got, if you've got Bishop, if they're fit, Bishop, Dazelle, Downs, Hughes, Lancaster, Dobra, El Mazzuni, you can play just 11 midfielders. Goalkeeper wouldn't make much difference anyway, would it?
Just need a team of Tommy Smiths, don't we? Alan Judge, can we focus briefly on Alan Judge? Because we rejected a bid from QPR for him in the summer transfer window.
Yeah.
And most look back on that decision now and possibly question it knowing the season that he's had. But at the time, that felt like a really important statement. We just haven't seen enough from him, have we, Seb?
No, and you can go to the last 6 months of last season as well. I don't think he's the player we thought we were going to get, but I do feel a bit sorry for him. It's no coincidence. The 2-4-1 games, Accrington and Burton, he's playing in a number 10 role just behind the strikers. So many times he was out wide on the wing, and that's not his position. That's not his game. So from that point of view, I feel a bit sorry for him. But he's disappointed this year. There's no denying that.
That spell, Graham, where Judge has played on the left of midfield in a 4-4-2 in October and November, just totally ruined it, didn't it? And he didn't have the discipline to stay there. And
he even alluded to it himself, didn't he? When he was asked in interviews and things, he said, "Well, I play wherever the boss, the old usual trope. I play wherever the boss wants me, but he knows that's not his best position. He needs to be feeding off the striker, doesn't he?" So yeah, disappointing. Also, he had that problem with his son, didn't he, as well?
Yeah.
The UPR thing probably weighed on his head. He's probably thinking, well, I could go back to London, and yeah, it's disappointing, totally.
Caden Jackson, Seb, a decent campaign.
Yeah, pleased for him. There were so many times last year he was sort of isolated up front on his own, and I think the EATD guy's done a quote where he said he wanted to start 10 games this season, but his goal scoring in pre-season made him a start from the off, and I was really impressed with him. He runs the channels really well, and I'd give him a 7 for the season.
Yeah, top assists, top goals, isn't he?
7. He's joint with Norwood for goals. I'm not sure about the assists.
Okay, but that sending off maybe blotted his copybook, if you want to use a cliche. Norwood, Graham.
I like Norwood, and Seb alluded to it earlier, that I think if he'd been fit, we'd have been in a far, far better position. I mean, he's a natural goal scorer. He rarely misses when he is on goal, and but the injury clearly messed his season up, didn't it?
He did miss some sitters though, Graham.
Yeah, he did. He was always there. Half the time,
True.
The ball across the box, and there's no one there at all.
And great for the social media as well.
Yeah, but he you know, he's obviously been carrying this injury as well, you know, even before he's had the operation. So I think, as Seb said, you know, a whole season, if we can get a whole season out of him, it could be quite good.
Mm-hmm. Sears and Keane, meh.
You can't judge Sears, can you, to be fair? I mean, he made a handful of appearances. Keane, we were at Coventry away in December, and he was the focal point. And when the ball was played into feet, he was brilliant. He was dropping deep, bringing others into play, and that's how he should have played for the rest of the season. It's not really his fault that Lambert made him the focal point, and he was getting balls launched towards his head. And as Graham said earlier, his heading isn't a strong part of his game. I've got no idea what his contract is. I was a bit surprised that we've released him. I know they'll go back in and get him, but that does just leave us with 2 out-and-out senior strikers. So I assume they've got something lined up to bring in a replacement.
Yep.
Yeah, I was at Coventry as well. I thought he had a great game, but you don't want to be launching it to his head. He's not that sort of player, is he? He can bring players in. He can even score your goals, but he has to be played to feet.
Well, he had a spell in one of the games. I don't know if it was Accrington or somewhere. He sat in as number 10 as well, and that seemed to. I think he came on for Judge and did well. But I think Mullet would be shouting at us saying, "Vastly underrated, Will Keane." But
well, me and like that when it comes to Keane.
Yeah. We should have done the question so Mullet could have done that one more time. But we salute you, Will Keane. His contract hasn't been renewed as it stands. Same with Rowe and Roberts. And that's it, guys. That is the season. We have done it. I ran out of beer a long time ago, so I feel like I need another one. But I hope everyone enjoyed that. Any final thoughts on the season or any other comments you haven't had a chance to make? No? Alongside from Graham.
It was disappointing, let's be honest. But, you know, think of the crop coming through. The new kit's out today. Next year you'll have Lancaster, Dobra, El Mazzuni. There are lots of reasons to be optimistic. So I know it's been quite a down pod based on the results, but there are definitely things to look forward to.
Graham, is there something to be said for being a fairly stable professional outfit in a period of uncertainty that might make us a bit more resistant to the kind of threats that some of the smaller teams are facing financially?
I think so. I think because we've got, as Seb just said and I said before that, you know, we've got the midfield we've got coming through are fantastic, but he's got to play them and he's got to stick to a solid side. And even if we lose, you know, keep the bulk of that side together. Don't keep changing it. Right from the beginning of this thing, you said, didn't you, Rich, that chopping and changing, international breaks, we'll stop now, we'll have a rest. No need, was there? I mean, it was only El Mazzuni that was away on international duty anyway, wasn't it, in one of those breaks? Well,
and Georgiou as well, yeah.
Oh, George, yeah. Well,
he wasn't in the team, so.
No, exactly. So, yeah, we need stability. Now, whether that's management, I'm not convinced, but certainly need stability in the side, don't we? As to what happens, we re-Lambert, I think maybe 3 months into the season we'll find out, won't we?
We'll find out whenever that season resumes.
Okay, or whatever.
Guys, thank you so much for that. Graham, where can we find you on Twitter, and any Naked Footy announcements that you want to make?
I'm just Naked Footy on Twitter.
Naked Footy.
I'm losing fans by the minute because for criticising the government, but we weren't going to talk about.
We almost made it. You almost. I feel like there's a Faulty Towers joke there, but I'm not sure in the current climate I want to repeat it. But presumably you'll be back for the new season.
Yeah, hopefully whenever it starts, and for those watching, we're going to have Rich on first, even if we have to do it remotely like this.
Cool.
Well, hopefully, Richie, we could actually do it in the pub if you're coming down for a game.
I'll have my Ipswich Town face mask on if it ever arrives, and we'll do that.
Have you actually done them? Have they got Ipswich Town face
Yeah,
masks?
but they put them on sale about 2 months ago, and they still haven't arrived. It's like getting PPE from Turkey. Let's not go political. I'm going to do my best. But,
You into that.
they're not going to restock them by the sounds of it. I think they were more hassle than they're worth. Great stuff. At Naked Footy. Seb, where can we find you?
At Brown S08.
At Brown S08. You can find me at Ipswich. You can find our Blue Monday channel at Blue Monday ITFC. We're on Instagram. We're on YouTube. And a quick plug as well, and a thank you to the guys who have already done this. Our Acast is our platform that hosts our podcast and pushes it out to Apple and all other places as well. And if you'd want to donate to the channel and help us support in putting more pods out and hopefully increasing the sophistication, maybe getting rid of some of the crap, the old deadwood like me, and getting new people in, I don't know. But if you want to donate, that'd be very generous of you. A few guys have done that, a guy called Jude and Toogsy and Ed Hawker and Will Airy and a guy called DJ. But please do that. The link is on our Twitter. There'll be probably an advert for it as well if you're listening to the pod, so please do that. But it's not compulsory. We are not becoming a subscription service. But if you feel like you'd like to do that, then please do so. Who wants to have the last word? I've spoken a lot. I'm hoarse. Seb, do you want to say goodbye? And
I'll say goodbye.
What's
Stay
Welsh
safe,
for
everyone.
goodbye?
And, I don't actually know.
Come on.
Is it Yaki Dar? That's the only thing I know in Welsh.
Pop the
I know
king.
Borodar is hello, but I don't know. So I'll say stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you soon. And Graham can obviously do the last word.
Yeah. Say hello to all the Blue Monday guys.
Will
Rich.
do. And
And have a good rest of lockdown.
Yeah, everyone, and stay safe. Yeah.
Yeah. Take care, guys. Thank you.